Thanks to the honorable path these Andong scholars have taken, Andong has become the capital of moral culture in Korea. Many leaders around the world visit Andong.
여기에는 대한민국을 대표하는 문화가 다 있습니다. 전통적으로 내려오는 우리 유교 문화라든지 불교 문화라든지 이런 문화들이 다 여기에 녹아 있습니다. 영국 여왕 그분이 74세 생신 때 안동에 오셨는데 거기에 와서 하신 말씀이 한국 중에 한국, 코리아 인 코리아 이렇게 이야기했어요. 그래서 너무 좋다 이래가지고 자기 둘째 아들 보고 가봐라. 이래가 앤드류 왕자가 20년 후에 다시 다녀갔어요. 그래서 그 갖는 길을 로얄 웨이라 이름을 명명을 했습니다.
That's where I'll be staying tonight. It's a traditional Hanok home. And what's so special about this house is the direct descendants of Li Huang live here. I'm thankful that they opened their home to me. This place is beautiful. Oh my gosh, this is so nice.
It's so exciting that I can spend a day in this beautiful place.
I can't believe that.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
반갑습니다.
좀 뵙겠습니다.
안동에 오신 걸 환영합니다.
저도 영광입니다. Mrs. Do, thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
This place is beautiful.
정말요? 감사합니다.
There's nothing around here
Yeah.
but your place.
Yes.
I've never seen a sunset that color before.
really?
Yeah, it's like violet, like there's these violet
여러
pink.
색깔이 여러 개가.
The scenery is spectacular. So, how old is this place?
이 집 한 150년 정도 됐어요.
150 years?
150년.
Oh my gosh.
됐죠.
Why is it the only house now here?
사실 이 집 주변에 아무것도 없잖아요. 아무것도 없는데 예전에는 저 아래에 있을 때 이 집이 있었고 옆에 좀 다른 집들이 좀 있었거든요. 근데 그 집들은 댐 때문에 다 물에 잠기고 이 집도 이 지금 메인 빌딩 말고 다른 옆에 부속 건물들이 있었는데 다 물에 들어가고
네.
한 45년 전에 이쪽으로 다 옮겨오게 됐어요. 그래서 이 집만.
어떻게 하세요?
이 집은 다 한옥은 다 이렇게 분리가 가능하거든요.
Took everything
네.
apart?
Yes.
Piece by piece?
피스 바이 피스. 이렇게 해서 다 하나씩 옮긴 다음에 다시 조립하는 거죠. 다시.
really?
네.
One of the principles Korean scholars took into their hearts is kwayu-bulgup, which means too much is as bad as too little. So they refrain from craving wealth or honor, and such a mentality is embedded in this place, Andong. It's not too lavish, but absolutely beautiful.
I know. I'm very looking forward to staying here tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
The sky above Andong Lake is full of shiny stars. While looking at the night sky of spring from this old Hanok house, it feels as if I'm transported straight back to a few hundred years ago.
Wow, the stars are coming down. No, I haven't seen many stars recently. It's hard to see stars in the country these days. Yeah, but I heard Andong is famous for stars.
Those scholars who lived in Andong centuries ago must have seen a much brighter sky than I do tonight. And looking at all these countless stars, they were probably humbled by the greatness of nature. Some of those chose to study fiercely and protect their country at all costs. The royal way creates the values of the past and present. I don't think it's a coincidence that so many great stars were born in Andong.
No jam in my bottle. No jam in my bottle. I got no jam in my bottle. Nothing for me. No jam in my bottle. Me, we can if you love. Walk into fire in the sky of July. We can if you love like I love. Oh, Rosie, oh, roses are red, but my life is so every piece of you. So meet me at the coffee shop. I ordered 7 coffees. You know all my ups and downs since 2015.
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the status UN summit. A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang. 도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 APEC은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 APEC 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung says he's willing to accept a deal where North Korea would freeze nuclear weapons production as an interim step, rather than getting rid of them, saying what matters is restoring trust between the two Koreas. But the North leader Kim Jong-un continues to insist that unification is impossible. And President Lee is now set to travel to New York for this year's UN General Assembly. Eyes are now on the speech he will deliver there, as well as the bilateral meetings he's expected to hold on the sidelines. The United States is planning to nearly double the ESTA fee for visitors. Starting on September 30th, the cost of the application will be raised to $40. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung says he's open to a deal between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, where Pyongyang would freeze nuclear weapons production, saying it could be a realistic alternative. Meanwhile, Kim once again made it clear that the two Koreas are completely incompatible entities. Our Park Jun-an starts us off.
In a bid to ease long-standing tensions on the Korean peninsula, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung has suggested what he described as a realistic solution to North Korea's nuclear program, emphasizing a freeze on weapons production over immediate denuclearization. Speaking to the BBC ahead of its departure for the U.S. on Monday to chair a UN Security Council meeting, Lee described such a freeze as an interim emergency measure that could halt Pyongyang's annual production of 15 to 20 additional nuclear weapons. He called the plan a feasible, realistic alternative while maintaining the long-term goal of full denuclearization. President Lee said rebuilding trust between South and North Korea is crucial, particularly given the previous Yoon administration's aggressive approach toward Pyongyang, adding that he believes these steps will encourage the North to resume negotiations. In an interview with Reuters on Friday, Lee said he has sought to ease tensions with North Korea, but Pyongyang has rejected Seoul's outreach, leaving him thoughtful about the near-term prospects for inter-Korean dialogue.
북한이 대화 자체를, 접촉 자체를 아예 거부하고 있기 때문에 남북 간의 소통, 대화, 협력은 당분간은 어려울 것으로 판단이 됩니다.
However, North Korea has been rejecting approaches from the Lee administration with sharp criticism. In a Supreme People's Assembly address over the weekend, Kim Jong-un clarified that unification is impossible and classified the two Koreas as completely incompatible entities that are two separate states with no need for shared endeavors. Kim emphasized that denuclearization is meaningless for North Korea, which declared itself a nuclear power in 2022, vowing never to give up its nuclear arsenal. Despite the hostility towards Seoul, Kim left the door open for talks with Washington. During the address, Kim recalled personal interactions with U.S. President Donald Trump and suggested dialogue could resume if the U.S. abandons its denuclearization fixation and recognizes North Korea as a nuclear state, paving the way for peaceful coexistence. Park Junan, Arirang News.
And South Korean President Lee Jae Myung will embark on a 5-day trip to New York today. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin tells us what to watch during his visit.
South Korea's presidential office says President Lee Jae Myung's trip to New York for this year's United Nations General Assembly will mark his full-fledged debut on the multilateral stage. Lee's first overseas visit after taking office in June was to the G7 summit in Canada, but this time the stage is far bigger, with some 190 heads of state and government expected to attend. While the president has several events lined up during his 5-day trip, two stand out. The first will be his address to the UN General Assembly on Tuesday local time.
Through this address, President Lee will declare South Korea's restoration of democracy, outline his administration's vision for the Korean Peninsula, and share how we can contribute to global peace and prosperity.
Much of the attention will be on Lee's message on North Korea as Seoul continues to extend overtures for dialogue despite Pyongyang remaining hostile. Another major highlight will come on Wednesday when President Lee chairs an open debate at the UN Security Council, the first time for any South Korean leader. This was made possible by the country's rotating presidency of the 15-member body this month. The theme will be artificial intelligence, international peace, and security.
Overall, it enhances South Korea's diplomatic standing and provides an opportunity to advocate for issues important to the country and to the broader international community.
Eyes are also on the bilateral meetings Lee will hold on the sidelines. National Security Advisor Wi Sung-rak said the president is expected to meet with leaders of France, Italy, Uzbekistan, the Czech Republic, and Poland. But the big question is, will there be a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump? Wi said no summit is scheduled, but did not rule out an encounter at the UN headquarters. One expert says even a brief exchange could be significant, as ties between Seoul and Washington face uncertainty due to stalled trade negotiations and the recent detention of Korean workers in Georgia.
It would be good to reaffirm the positive chemistry the two leaders showed at the White House last month, even if detailed discussions on tariff deals aren't possible. If they can demonstrate some unity, I believe it could have a positive impact on the negotiations that are currently at a standstill.
President Lee will arrive in New York on Monday local time and return home on Friday. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
The United States is set to nearly double the fee for its electronic system for travel authorization, or ESTA, which allows visa-free visits of up to 90 days. Starting on September 30th, the cost of the application will be raised from the current $21 to $40. Meanwhile, Washington on Friday also announced its plans to raise the H-1B worker visa fee from the current $1,000 to $100,000. Officials initially said the fee would apply annually, but quickly clarified it's a one-time fee. U.S. government data shows India was the largest beneficiary of the H-1B visas last year, accounting for 71%. Roughly 2,000 Koreans receive the visas each year. Now, on the domestic economic front, the application for the second round of livelihood recovery consumption coupons just started on Monday, and eligible recipients can apply to receive 100,000 Korean won, or around $72. However, not all individuals who receive first round of consumption coupons are eligible for the second round. Only households in the bottom 90% income bracket based on health insurance contributions are eligible. For single-person households, the cutoff is 220,000 Korean won in health insurance contributions, and for four-person households, it is 510,000 won. Also not eligible are high-asset individuals with a property tax base of over 1.2 billion won or annual earnings from financial assets exceeding 20 million won. Applications accepted until October 31st can be made through card companies or local offices. The coupons valid at small businesses and certain cooperatives will expire on November 30th. To manage demand during the first week, applicants can only apply on certain days based on the last digit of their birth year, 1 or 6 on Monday, 2 or 7 on Tuesday, and so on. And also in an interview with Reuters regarding trade negotiations with the United States, President Lee Jae Myung said a currency swap agreement is necessary to avoid an economic crisis. For more on trade talks with Washington, we're joined today by Dr. Song Soo-young, professor at the College of Business and Economics at Chungang University. Professor Song, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
So what President Lee Jae Myung said this morning is that without a currency swap, if South Korea were to withdraw $350 billion in the manner that the United States is demanding, Seoul would face a financial crisis like the one it experienced in 1997, right? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, this is a really realistic threat against some financial status of Korean economy as a whole. So I consider the response was very appropriate and take into account the potential impact of the sudden outflow of the cash in terms of the international US dollar. That is a really serious burden for our country's financial status in terms of the international settlement currency reserve. So considering the size of our reserve, this $360 billion $360 billion investment, without any assurance about under which country. Actually, this is a Trump demand that this is an unconditional investment. So to that regards, it not only affects the financial state of Korea, but also I think the political stance within in Korea for President Lee. So considering that, it's urgent for our country to have some kind of currency swap, or I think I heard that President Lee is going to have a talk with some financial experts in while he paid a visit to UN United Nations meeting, General Assembly, and then that is I think that is related with his concern about the financial status. So to that regard, still we need to be very careful and cautious, but still we need to the optimal strategy is to delay the settlement or the investment in the U.S. should be under control by South Korea.
Right, we'll have to see how that goes. And auto tariffs are another key issue between Seoul and Washington. Japanese cars actually face lower tariffs in the United States than Korean cars, as they face 15%, whereas Korean cars face 25%. How should Seoul work on negotiations with Washington to minimize that impact on Korean car makers?
The immediate negative impact is unavoidable, I believe, because as far as the U.S. is going to impose a 25% tariff because of the no settlement of the $360 billion unconditional investment in the U.S., but that should be addressed as a temporary burden for South Korea. So at least the Hyundai and Kia or the major exporting car cars to the U.S. market cannot avoid this situation. But in order to avoid this 25% tariff just for auto, signing with some unconditional investment is too much cost, which will be spread out among the Korean domestic people. So to that regards, I think even with a 25%, Hyundai Kia must take into account of that cost and build some factories within the U.S. to avoid the tariff. And also, the Kia and the Hyundai must develop some potential export to other countries without any tariff, such as China and Europe and Russia and other countries. That is the escape route to relieve the burden of this kind of pressure. So for me, my opinion is the Hyundai Kia has really, they must persevere this kind of difficulties for the time being.
I see. And the Trump administration is also saying that it'll impose a $100,000 fee for applicants of H-1B visas that's required for foreign workers with specialized skills to work in the United States. So the idea is apparently to push companies to hire more American workers than foreign workers, right? But some say this could hit a lot of companies pretty hard, especially big tech firms in the United States. What's your take on this?
Yeah, this morning I just saw the news about some Indian workers in the San Francisco and the Silicon Valley area. They received a message that the plane who are scheduled to have a vacation abroad has been received the message that disembark from the airplane and then come back to because of this unstable and very vulnerable visa status. So this implies that most of the foreign workers think twice again whether they would like to stay in the U.S. Then this policy is to encourage the foreign workers to gather some U.S. citizenship. Otherwise, their status is going to be very vulnerable. Therefore, this could have some impact. Intentionally, they increase this kind of visa fee and some jeopardize foreign workers, particularly the skilled, high-skilled, high-quality workers to acquire the U.S. citizenship. I think that is the ultimate goal of the Trump administration right now.
I see. That sounds pretty concerning. And all right, Professor Song, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Long before K-pop, there was Korean traditional music, K-gugak. South Korea's first ever K-gugak Expo is now underway in Yeongdong-gun County in the very center of South Korea. Our Park Hyo-bin takes us there.
Under the cool autumn breeze, Korea's lively rhythms fill the air. Performers play traditional Korean instruments such as 꽹과리 and 장구 to the beat of 풍물, lifting the spirit of the crowd. The World Traditional Music and Arts Expo has opened in Yeongdong-gun County, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, known as the home of Korea's traditional music. It's also known as the Yeongdong World K-gugak Expo, with K-gugak meaning traditional Korean music.
There are 33 of us here today for the expo. It's bigger than I expected, and even at the entrance, we were saying how well it's set up. We'll look around some more. I've always loved traditional Korean music.
I really loved it. The atmosphere was so lively, and I'll definitely come back if they hold it again.
It isn't only Korean music that draws attention. A variety of sights, dances, and stage acts paired with traditional sounds captivate visitors. One of them is Bonanori, similar to a plate-smithing show that's part of the UNESCO-listed Intangible Cultural Heritage, Namsadangnori. The basic step known as ipchum, which underlies every movement in Korean dance, highlights the beauty of traditional performance. Alongside these traditional acts, there's also fusion K-gugak that combines Korean heritage with modern music, with more than 200 performances and busking sessions in total. The Expo isn't just about Korean sounds. Musicians from 30 countries, including China, Russia, and the Czech Republic, are sharing their instruments and performances, creating a true cross-cultural stage. The organizing committee says it hopes this exchange will broaden appreciation for world traditions and help K-gugak reach a wider global audience.
The Expo is not only Korea's first, but also the first of its kind worldwide. Here, you can experience the past, present, and future of Korean traditional music and enjoy outstanding dance and music from 30 invited countries, all in one place.
The Expo shows that tradition, when shared, can become a language the whole world understands. The Andong World K-gugak Expo runs until October 11th, bringing Korea and the world together through music. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. The United Kingdom and Canada became the first G7 countries to formally recognize the state of Palestine, with Australia and Portugal also announcing their recognition. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced the UK's recognition of Palestine's statehood in a video statement on Sunday, calling it a moral responsibility aimed at reviving hope for peace for both the Palestinians and Israelis. The UK Foreign Office stated that this recognition is based on the 1967 borders. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese expressed similar sentiments, indicating that this recognition aligns with Australia's long-standing support for a two-state solution. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney also issued a statement emphasizing that the recognition aims to empower those who seek peaceful coexistence. And Portuguese Foreign Minister Paulo Rangel expressed a desire to strengthen the deep friendship between the Israeli people and the renewed relations with the Palestinian people. However, Israel has strongly condemned these recognitions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described them as a huge reward for terrorism. Meanwhile, Hamas has welcomed the move, viewing it as validation of the Palestinian struggle, while the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas praised the recognition as a vital step toward lasting peace. Tensions are rising in the Netherlands just over a month ahead of its snap general election as police in The Hague violently clashed with anti-immigration protesters demanding stricter asylum policies. On Saturday, a protest organized by a right-wing activist drew approximately 1,500 people to The Hague, with demonstrators expressing their dissatisfaction with current asylum policies and calling for tighter immigration control. Protesters threw rocks and bottles, blocked a highway, set a police car on fire, and also attempted to advance towards the Dutch Parliament complex. In response, authorities deployed tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowd. 2 police officers were injured and around 30 individuals were arrested. Prime Minister Dick Schoof condemned the violence, describing the events as shocking and bizarre. Immigration remains a significant rallying point ahead of the October 29th elections, reflecting growing polarization and frustration in the country. In the Philippines, police and anti-corruption protesters clashed on the streets of the capital Manila on Sunday. Tens of thousands gathered near the presidential palace, demanding accountability for alleged corruption in flood control projects worth over $9.5 billion. Several people were arrested for throwing rocks, bottles, and even firebombs, and dozens of police officers were injured. Similar anti-corruption protests have recently emerged in other parts of Asia, including Nepal, where protests have been led by Gen Z activists. In Indonesia, protests focused on addressing corrupt elites, and in East Timor, citizens demanded transparent governance. In Paris, France, waiters and waitresses dressed in full workout attire raced through the capital city on Sunday, carrying trays balanced with a cup of coffee, a croissant, and a glass of water. In the traditional cafe race, a 4-kilometer race revived last year after over a decade-long hiatus. The goal is to finish the race quickly without spilling anything. One drop of water or a slight tilt to the tray can result in time penalties. Organizers say the race is a tribute to cafe culture in Paris, meaning both as entertainment and as recognition of the demanding work undertaken by serving staff.
The chilly air we're feeling in the mornings and evenings is a clear sign that autumn is here. A wide temperature gap will once again develop during the day. Areas including Chuncheon could see a temperature difference of over 10 degrees Celsius during the day. And please keep an eye out for strong winds, especially near the south coast and Jeju, where gusts could reach 15 to 20 meters per second. Meanwhile, we need to be extra careful with high swells along the east coast. Most regions will be under partly sunny skies with lingering rain on Jeju through this morning. Then highs will get up to 28 degrees on the island. Seoul, Daejeon, Daegu, Gyeongju will be all topping out at 25 degrees Celsius. Looking ahead, rain will begin on the south coast and Jeju tomorrow, spreading to the entire country by Wednesday. And then temperatures will drop to 23 degrees on Wednesday. So please do dress accordingly not to catch a cold.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back soon at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
There is no greater blessing than to have good health as you grow old. Even though my mom is over 70, she is peppy and full of energy. One day, our family started practicing Taekwondo, and it turned out to be a special blessing for us. Taekwondo family, return to happiness.
옛날에는 택시부터 시작해가지고 버스, 덤프트럭, 낮과 밤이 없이 몸이 부서지도록 일을 했죠. 그러다 보니까 몸이 많이 망가졌어요. 허리 협착증도 생겼고 무릎도 아프고. 이제는 내 삶이 다 됐는갑다 생각을 하고 사는 것도 싫고 완전 좌절을 했죠.
지팡이를 짚고 다니실 만큼 근력이 약해지셔가지고 너무 힘들었는데 우연찮게 실버 태권도라는 거를 알게 되셨어요.
다리도 안 올라갔거든요, 솔직히. 근데 64세부터 태권도를 해서 7년째 하고 있습니다.
인상도 너무 밝아지셨고 빨리 가고 싶다고 하시고 도복을 보면서 흐뭇해 하시더라고요. 그때부터 어머니의 삶이 다시 시작이 된 것 같고 지팡이를 안 짚기 시작하셨어요. 그게 진짜 놀라운 변화인 것 같습니다.
어르신들이 운동을 통해서 노년을 건강한 생활을 할 수 있게끔 도와주는 게 바로 저는 태권도라고 생각이 듭니다.
Not only did Mother experience this change, but her fellow teammates also felt reborn due to the dramatic change in their lives.
너무 좋아요. 온 세상을 다 얻은 것 같죠. 제가 태권도 전도사가 된 것 같아요.
열정이 높으신 분이죠. 그 가족 전체가 태권도 가족입니다. 아주 화목하고 건강이 넘치는 대한민국의 대표적인 태권도 가족이 아닌가 싶습니다.
We're a family that loves practicing Taekwondo, so we've embarked on a new challenge.
사실 저희 가족들이 아픔이 정말 많습니다. 제가 아침에 일어났는데 반신이 마비가 왔었고 저희 아이는 태어나자마자 인공 심박기를 달았었고 정상으로도 살기 힘들다는 진단을 받았었지만 이 아이를 보면서 기적이라는 것을 알게 됐거든요. 그래서 태권도는 행복 그 자체입니다.
태권도를 해서 강해지니까 더 자신감이 올라가고 행복해요.
I believe Taekwondo is a blessing from heaven. It has made us hopeful for the future. Every day, we're excited to see what's in store for us tomorrow. Practice it with your family. Taekwondo brings happiness.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insight, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Monday, September 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining today is Ki.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And also Grace is with us.
Great to be here.
To have you. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday, which means we're kicking off another work week. And as we head into the office or schools, it's not just coffee that's on people's minds, it's probably money. For a lot of young people today, the conversation around money goes beyond just saving your monthly salary. And that's why one of the biggest buzzwords right now is investment, especially in the stock markets. So to get things started, how are you managing and investing your money, Ki?
Well, for your opening, you said people think about money, and that is so true because that's the only reason I'm here. Just kidding. Well, I honestly have a hard time making everyday life, but I'm not good at investing or revolving money. Not a big portion, but a small amount I take goes into stocks, and both in the States and Korea. I also have some funds. I invest like $100 or $200 every month, and I have an entrusted fund manager to run them. And there's also an app that helps me invest in stocks. Instead of buying a whole single stock at a time, I buy $10 to $20 worth of a certain company's stock every week. So it'd be 1/5 or even 1/10 of a single stock. But after a couple of months, you'd be owning a whole single stock. It doesn't give you too much of a burden. I do this for some American companies because their stock price is just so expensive to buy a whole sum at once.
So I feel like you do quite a bit of investment. Do you have any advice for people, like a low pressure way to start investing?
Don't start with a big amount. And then always do with some money that you can spare. Try it out first, and then if you get sort of a strategy, when you can get technical, that's when you start coming in with the bigger money.
I think this is really sound advice. What about you, Grace?
Well, I'm definitely not an investment expert, but a few years ago, I heard once the phrase, cash is trash, referring to how just storing away your cash is not an effective hedge against inflation. So I realized that maybe investing would be a smarter financial choice rather than just saving my monthly salary. And while I don't have a lot of seed money to make these grandiose investments, I do take a portion of my earnings and put them towards some major stocks, which has generated some profit over the years. And this in turn makes investing just more fun for me. And right now I'm only invested in American stocks, but I have noticed that the Kospi has been doing really well, reaching record highs.
So like you said, Grace, with the Kospi hitting record highs, interest in stock investment is higher than ever. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more.
With the prices of almost everything from groceries to housing continuing to soar with no real signs of slowing down, young people are turning to investment more than ever before. Many are joining online communities and streaming financial content to pick up tips on where and how to grow their money. And with the Kospi recently reaching all-time highs, paired with the new administration pledge to boost the stock market, interest in investing is only getting stronger. Today on News Generation, we're diving into the rise of the Kospi, the investment habits of millennials and Gen Z, and why we're seeing a full-on investment boom among young people in Korea.
So as we just saw in the video, the Kospi has been performing strongly, reaching new highs and grabbing a lot of attention from investors. After months of volatility, the index has climbed to record levels, fueled by a mix of factors that we'll be getting into today. So what exactly has the Kospi been looking like lately, and what's driving this surge key?
Well, since crossing the 3,000 mark back in June, the Kospi has been setting fresh record highs days after days. Last Friday, September 19th, Kospi closed at 3,467.89 points. Today, as of 22nd of September 2025, Kospi started at 3,463.84, up 18.60 points from the week before. Tech-heavy Kosdaq also started 5.95 points higher with 869.06 points. So what's fueling this momentum is that both investors and institutions have been net buyers driving the rally forward, and many point to the strong commitment expressed by President Jae Myung during his 100-day press conference on the 11th, where he underlined his determination to revitalize the stock market, and that message seems to have given investors an extra boost of that confidence.
So it's clear that both domestic and foreign investors are responding positively to the administration's signals, and the market seems to be gaining momentum like we haven't seen in years. So what exactly did President Lee emphasize regarding the stock market, and how might that shape investment trends for the rest of the year, Grace?
Well, President Jae Myung emphasized that revitalizing the stock market is a core element of the new administration's economic and industrial policies, and stated that Korean citizens should be provided with new investment opportunities beyond real estate. For some time now, real estate in the Korean market has been considered the surefire way to generate profit and is highly desired by almost everyone. It's always the hottest topic in conversations regarding investment, but now we're seeing that the recent Kospi figures are boosting investor sentiment as more people are allocating their funds toward the Korean stock market. Industry experts now predict that the Kospi will reach a new high by the end of this year.
So like you said, a lot of people are interested in the Korean stock market. So are there any industries that you'd personally be interested in investing in?
Well, for one, I know that I'm going to have to be studying what I'm going to be investing in. So for me, I'm more comfortable just with the bigger companies, just because I feel like they're easier to get more information on, and, you know, they're a little bit more stable than like the smaller, the up-and-coming companies.
Yeah, it's a safe way to invest.
Yeah.
Right? So it makes sense that the administration's strong push is giving investors confidence, and experts are optimistic that the market could keep booming. So this is expected to further fuel interest in stocks, but haven't many millennials and Gen Zs already been investing for some time now?
Sure. Surprisingly, according to some survey conducted last year, about 35% of Koreans said they have invested in stocks. Nearly half the people in their 30s, 49%, are active investors, and that's 1 out of every 2. And what's more, investors in their 20s and younger have surged, jumping 3.6 times over the past 5 years. So if you take a look at the screen now, the number of shareholders under 30, that means mainly those who are in 20s or even younger, we only had 380,000 investors back in 2019. Whereas looking at last year, 2024, we saw 1.38 million young shareholders, seeing 3.6 times increase within 5 years.
Wow, so those figures really show how actively young people are participating in the stock market. So nearly half of those in their 30s are investing. And the number of investors under 20 has skyrocketed in the past 5 years. So are young people focusing only on stocks, or are they exploring other types of investment as well, Grace?
Well, it seems like millennials and Gen Z are interested not only in investing in stocks, but also real estate, like I mentioned, as well as cryptocurrency. Recently, they've been growing their investments in foreign exchange as well, taking advantage of the exchange rates. And they've also been buying gold, which are hitting record highs. With the intensifying investment craze, we're witnessing more cases of young investors borrowing excessively so that they have more seed money to invest in stocks and crypto. This, of course, has consequences, leading more people to accumulate mountains of debt, which is increasingly becoming a social problem. In fact, half of those filing for bankruptcy are in their 20s and 30s.
So this really highlights both the opportunities and the risks young people are exploring a wide range of investment, but it also shows how financial pressure can become a serious social issue. So what's driving this surge of interest in investing among millennials and Gen Zs in recent years, Keen?
Well, these days, for financial management of the MZ generation has practically turned into what I call, or might call it, a means of surviving. So for many in their 20s and 30s, finding quality jobs, meaning paying a lot of money, isn't easy, and they don't feel they can rely on the national pension, which is often viewed as running on borrowed time. And that leaves investments like stocks as virtually their only pathway to grow assets. And while some young people do take on high risk and high return stages, so-called B2 or debt investing, or what we call 영끌, having all the assets possible, analysts point out that the 20-30 generation leans toward holding blue chip stocks for the long term, aiming for steady growth rather than quick risky gain. In other words, behind the headlines of aggressive speculation, there's also a generation quietly building a stable future, just like what I'm doing nowadays.
Do you kind of remember how old you were when you first started investing?
Well, I started when I was 21 or 22, so I'm not going to tell how long it was. Then I started quite young because I started making money a long time ago, but then I was getting some false information from my seniors or people I was working with, so you have to make sure the fact you're having is, as a matter of fact, it's fact.
It's also a learning curve as well.
Right.
So it's clear that investing has become more than just a way to make extra money. It's now a key part of financial survival for many young people. And that explains why we see such a wide range of strategies. Some take bigger risks, while many prefer steady, long-term investments to secure their future. So with that in mind, why are so many young Koreans choosing stocks and crypto over more traditional paths like saving in a bank or buying a home, Grace?
Our generation, and I can vouch for this, has experienced the difficulties of purchasing a home solely based on our earned income, like through jobs. And with such low interest rates these days, putting our hard-earned cash in the bank, like in the past, is not enough to be an effective hedge against inflation. So it just makes more sense to put that toward things like stocks and crypto. We want to be smart with our money and would rather opt to invest in things that would make us more profit in the long run. And according to a survey, it was found that millennials and Gen Z chose real estate as the most promising investment option. But for those lacking seed money, stocks and crypto are the easier, more accessible options.
So for you personally, if you had some extra money to invest in, which area would you be interested in investing in?
I would be interested in investing in real estate just because it's not a part of my portfolio right now, and I do want to get started in real estate. It's just a matter of, like I mentioned, it's just not enough seed money to invest in real estate at the moment.
I think it's also important, like you said, because you've already invested in stocks before, to kind of diversify your portfolio.
Exactly.
So to find out more, we're going to talk to an economic expert about current trends in investing in the financial outlook for young people. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts. and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
So we're joined today by Professor Shin Se-dong, a professor of business economics at Sookmyung Women's University. Hi, Professor. You're currently on the line with us. So thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Good morning.
Good morning. So how do the investment habits of millennials and Gen Z in Korea differ from those of older generations?
Well, for the older generation, like Generation X or baby boomers, they are pretty risk averse in the sense that they really hate to take a risk because most of them have been born when their families were pretty poor. But unlike those, Generation X or baby boomers, Millennium Generation or Generation Z, they were born relatively affluent families. So they are pretty much like, unlike a Generation X, they pretty much like, risk. So fundamentally, whether they are risk averse, like, Generation X or below, or Millennium Generation or Generation Z, they are pretty risk lover. I think that is fundamental economic difference between the two groups of generations.
Thank you for your insights between those two groups. Professor, so what are the investment trends among young people overseas and how do they compare to Korea?
Very, very much different because, the younger generation overseas, they are not quite different from their, older generation. But the Korean generation, like Generation Y or Generation Z, there's a specific kind of very peculiar kind of a difference between the older generation and the younger generation. So you cannot find very much difference in the investment behavior of, the Generation X or Generation Y or Generation Z in foreign country. But in Korea, you can see a specific difference between Generation X and Generation Z. That I think is because Korean economy has been developed so fast and so rapid over the last, I think, 30 years.
Professor Shin, then, what should young investors keep in mind when managing their finances? Are there any particular risks or precautions that they should be aware of?
As I said, just Generation Z, especially Generation Y and Z, they are pretty much risk lover. They don't think pretty much of the risk, and so another peculiar thing is they like to borrow. We call it leverage. They want to borrow money at a relatively low interest rate, and then expect a very high rate of return in the bitcoins or in the stock market, etc. So one of the most concerning factor for me to investment by the Generation Y and Generation Z, they are prone to potential fluctuation in interest rates, and fluctuation in the stock prices, even fluctuation in housing prices. So I think they have to be very careful and mindful about potential fluctuation in the prices of assets.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today, Professor.
Thank you.
So we just spoke with an economic expert about the investment habits of young Koreans, how they compare to their peers overseas, and what to watch out for when we manage our money. But of course, investing isn't without its risks. So what are some of the things young people should be careful about when they get too caught up in investing, Ki?
Sure. Because I dress up like I look like an expert today, but I'm not. Something too much is something you have to avoid, of course. Make sure investing wouldn't turn into an addiction. It's important not to get too carried away when people borrow money to invest and take on risks they really can't handle. The psychological pressure, because becomes unavoidable, and investments that leave you with any kind of constant anxiety, that's not the right path forward. So when I do stocks, I just leave them and not think about it. Hopefully, eventually it's going to grow, but not to argue. It almost seems pathetic when someone constantly looks at their smartphones almost every 5 minutes to check how their stock is doing. So let's just leave it at that moment.
Right, I think it's good advice, although it's kind of hard sometimes to not do that. So even though people often focus on making or losing money, what's less talked about is the mental and emotional toll that risky investing can take on young people. So Grace, what kind of broader social impacts are we seeing from this trend?
The rise in bankruptcies among young people due to debt is not just a personal problem anymore. It also leads to increased social and economic costs for a country. For one, when there is a widespread increase in bankruptcies, it often reflects a larger economic problem like a recession. This causes consumers and businesses to reduce spending and lending, which can further stifle the economy. It also tightens credit conditions because a high rate of bankruptcy can make lenders more cautious, leading them to increase interest rates and tighten lending standards for everyone. And this can make it harder and more expensive for both consumers and businesses to borrow money, slowing down economic growth.
So we've covered a lot of different angles today, from the rise of investing among young people to the risk and even the social costs that are involved. So to finish off our discussion today, so what's the most important thing people should keep in mind when they invest, Key?
Well, this is what I hear from my seniors or elderly all the time. You should only invest with money you can spare, as though you wouldn't be too sad even if you lose all that money. It's not going to affect your life. That's the most important thing. And investments sometimes can be seen as a legal gamble. It shouldn't turn into an addiction, and it shouldn't hurt you. But as many say, just saving your income would not be enough. Saving interest is not as high as 30 years ago, like a professor was saying in Generation X or even before. So we should look for a wiser way to invest your money, check all your available resources, and carefully check all the information and facts.
I think this is really important. So what about you, Grace? Do you have any advice?
You know, I do think that it's great that young people like us are trying to be smart with our money, and it's important to know how to invest that money wisely. And this is probably what all investment experts say, but I would recommend diversifying your investments. Put a certain amount in savings, buy some gold, put some in stocks, and some in crypto if that is also a part of your investment portfolio. And remember, investing is not the same as gambling. Don't go into it blindly, so you need to educate yourself on what you're buying and also be aware of the risks involved, like the possibility of losing your principal amount in the worst case scenario.
Do you have any safety tips that you personally have in time?
Well, for me, just to keep my self-control, I guess, I set a goal for how much profit I want to sell by. So let's say that if I have a 10% profit, I won't wait. I won't be curious about, oh, but what if this goes up a little bit further? I'll just sell at 10%.
I think it's so hard to know with the timing. But I guess like Key said, you said, it's important to have patience, right?
That's true. And then it's just like you said, I always set a limit of how much I'm going to invest. Unlike a paid salary worker, I am a freelancer, so I have no idea how much money I'm going to be making each year, right? So I try to balance that out first, and then that's why I have a small amount invest every now and then. And also, like she said, we reach a certain point, you just have to sell it right away. Otherwise, you're not going to make a lot of money. You're going to be losing it. So that set of rule is very important when you're investing something.
I think these are all really sound advices. So with the cost be climbing and financial change shifting, you'll be hearing more about investing in the months to come. But at the end of the day, whether it's stocks, crypto, or real estate, there's no one-size-fits-all path to wealth. And the challenge and the responsibility lies in finding the right investment approach for you, one that helps you grow without pushing you beyond what you can handle. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. A big thanks to Key.
Thank you
for coming in. Also, Grace.
Thanks for having me.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.
building a sustainable tomorrow. Connect, innovate, and prosper. Connecting goods to goods, region to region, people to people, generation to generation. Facilitating innovation for all, closing the digital divide. Building an inclusive technology ecosystem, promoting digital innovation by deepening dialogues on AI. Achieving shared prosperity, addressing global challenges. Energy transition, climate change, population decline, and pandemic responses. APEC-related events continuing in Seoul, the capital of the Republic of Korea, where diverse cultures blend. Jeju, the beautiful island, blessed with UNESCO Natural World Heritage Sites. Incheon, the vibrant international city, central hub, connecting Asia Pacific. Busan, the largest maritime city, centering around maritime trade and the logistics industry. And Gyeongju, the city hosting the APEC Economic Leaders